television. We're doing a documentary.
I don't want to be on bloody television. I'll sue you.
But, hey, what, did you hear him? We'll have to scrap that.
Well, we didn't scrap it. We'll show you why we didn't scrap it in a few moments. Did we invade his privacy? Does he know his rights? Do you know yours? Nobody's obliged to tell you your rights. It's up to you to find out. Do you know what you have the right to do or say in public or at home, where the law protects you and where it doesn't? During the next 50 minutes, we're giving you the chance to see how well you know your rights. See how many of our questions you can answer correctly. All the answers are short, mainly true or false. You can keep your score on a piece of paper and score yourself, what, 1 point for each correct answer. Our questions deal with your rights in England, Wales and Scotland. Where the correct answer differs in Scotland, we'll tell you, and the viewers in Scotland score 1 point if they get a different answer. And all the questions are being checked, I may say, by the Scottish Law Society. And in Northern Ireland, the emergency powers in force could mean that some of our answers may not apply in the province at this time. So that you can have someone to compare your score with, we have two teams in the studio and see if you can beat them. A team of people who help to make the laws that govern our rights, sort of them. Clement Freud, Liberal Member of Parliament for the Isle of Ely. Willie Hamilton, Labour Member of Parliament for Fife Central. And Norman St John-Stevas, Conservative Member of Parliament for Chelmsford. And a team of people who in one way or another are concerned about our rights, a sort of us team. Alfred Hinds, who successfully stood up for his rights on 4 occasions. Anna Raeburn of Woman magazine frequently advises her readers of their rights. And Jimmy Reid, the union official from Upper Clyde, who certainly looks after his workers' rights. Our team members will use the true and false indicators on the desk to answer most of the questions. We'll keep the team scores on a scoreboard and give you an average from time to time so that you can compare your own score with it. Our first question concerns the situation you saw at the beginning of the programme. Here it is again.
Do you think everybody's got a legal right to go in there and speak their mind?
Yeah, I suppose so. What is this, anyway?
Do you think...
What is this? I mean, what is all this about?
BBC television, we're doing a documentary.
I don't want to be on bloody television. I'll sue you.
But, hey,
He didn't want us to show it. We've shown it. Can he do anything about it? Question number 1. This man has a right to legal action because we've shown the film against his will. True or false? 5 seconds to answer. All done? Come on, Jimmy. Well, time's up, and the answer is false. He has no right to sue or take any legal action in this situation. Michael Molyneux, our legal advisor.
He was in a public place, and therefore he virtually invited us to approach him. And the fact that he didn't like it is legally really just too bad. He's got no right to privacy, whatever the consequences. If his wife sees him with another woman, for instance, and if the boss sees you at Lord's when you should be at work, it's the same thing. Are you beginning to feel that Big Brother is closing in a bit? Well, don't panic too much just yet.
You may have no protection in law, but remember you do have safeguards in the codes of practice of the organisation or the newspaper concerned, and these are frequently restrictive and perhaps rightly so. The man in the film was an actor employed by us to illustrate the question, but a classic real-life example of that situation cropped up while we were making this programme. Norma Shepherd, our reporter, was interviewing young mothers.
I asked these 2 girls with babies a question, and one said, "Is it for the telly? I'm not talking on the telly. My mum doesn't even know I've got a baby. If they saw that at home, you must be joking." So I said to the other girl, "Surely your mum knows." "Yes," she said, "but my father doesn't."
And as the law stands, nobody in those families could take any action had we chosen to reveal their identities and invaded their privacy. But somebody in the BBC certainly would have stopped us if we'd tried. We don't have many rights to start with, but we do have an awful lot of protection. As we grow up, we acquire more rights with each year that passes. When can a child start work?
do you know how old you have to be a paper boy?
About 14, isn't it? I don't really know.
Paperboy? Oh, I've seen tots delivering papers. They look about 11, 12.
Do you know what the age of consent is for sex? 16.
No, I don't. I haven't got a clue.
16.
50, if I had my way.
Well, a lot of different answers. Now we'll go through them again for you. How many were right? You try them. Let's go to the first one. How old must you be to deliver newspapers? How old must you be to deliver newspapers? That's the first one. The next one is, how old can you be in a pub and drink soft drinks? How old to be in a pub and drink soft drinks? And the next question is, what is the age of consent for sexual relations? Just write down an age. And then, at what age can a child be prosecuted for stealing? Next, how old must a babysitter be to be legally responsible for your child's welfare? And finally, at what age can you buy a pet legally? All finished. Clement Freud, how old do you have to be to deliver newspapers, do you think?
It depends on the newspapers, of course. I mean, a Guardian would be very much younger than something salacious like the Daily Mail.
What does the law say?
12.
Oh, it says 13. Willie Hamilton, how old to drink soft drinks in a pub?
I guess 16.
No, it's 14. Norman St. John-Stevas, what's the age of consent for sexual relations?
16 in the case of a girl.
Quite right, 16. Elfie Hinds, what's the earliest age a child can be prosecuted for stealing?
8.
Now, here we have a dilemma. Are you talking about Scotland or England?
I'm talking about Scotland.
I knew you were going to say that. Well, it's 10 for those of you who are in England. If you're in Scotland, it's 8. So, for the viewers in Scotland who put 8, take a point for that. And if you put down 10, pretend that you were answering the question in England. Ah, that's right. Anna Raeburn, how old must a babysitter be to be responsible in law?
I said 18.
Did you? It's 16, actually. I said it was 18, too. Jimmy Reid, what age do you have to be before you can legally buy a pet?
I quite frankly don't know, but I've got all the other questions right according to the answers you've given.
Well, let's try this one.
I would say 12.
You got it right. All right. The members of the Parliament have got 9 and the rest have got 10. Well, I wonder if you're beating that at home. I'll give you an average later on. Our next questions are to do with getting together and speaking your mind.
And society organises itself for their benefit, then of course we're...
It is essential in any free society that people should be able to gather together and to express and exchange views on every subject under the sun, or nearly every subject. It must be possible to seek a wide audience to preach in public to the unconverted.
Yes, and I will build my church. The Church of Jesus Christ has no history apart from the acts of the...
The Mound in Edinburgh, where people come to air their views.
And they don't have to ask you either. You tell me they're doing it here at the Mound. It's been done here at the Mound. People have been out...
Well, they're foolish to let it be done.
And you... Oh, no, don't say it's foolish, because they'll search it. They'll take you up the high street and search it, so what's the difference?
But I'll tell you what's wrong in the whole country. There's too big a disparity in the wage system. That's what's wrong.
10 minutes ago.
And of course, the most famous place in the world for speaking your mind, Speaker's Corner in London's Hyde Park.
Should be treated as war criminal and should be punished as war criminal.
Without my permission, they take my picture and my voice. You bastards!
And the way I try and live my life on this planet is the way I live my life on any other planet.
I'm bashing, mugging, and hijacking. Hang on. You want to have square bashing. Any questions on that? Not in Africa, but in Fulham. You know where Fulham is, isn't it?
What school did I go to? As an Englishman, I don't go to school.
No,
you're
too thick to get
in. Because as an Englishman, I am naturally educated.
Is the Socialist Party... Oh, well, ask it again. Then. Who won the FA Cup in
Question. You have a legal right to stand up and speak in Hyde Park. True or false? 5 seconds to answer. Time's up, and the answer is false. 1 point for false. There is no legal right to hold a meeting in Hyde Park or anywhere else.
If you want to stand still anywhere, in a park, a street, or any other public place, there's almost certainly someone whose permission you've got to get first. If you just set up in the street, then that's obstruction, which is a criminal offence. And all this, remember, before you've even opened your mouth to speak.
So no law will be broken, no constitutional right infringed if all speakers were banned from Hyde Park or the Mound next weekend. But some of the people in Hyde Park will have something to say about that, and very plainly too. And if we broadcast all we heard during our filming that Sunday, we would commit blasphemy, treason, obscenity and defamation, and that's just for a start. But most of us don't go to Hyde Park to air our views. We chat in shops and pubs, in the street or on buses and trains, and provided it's not seditious, threatening, obscene or abusive, we can say what we like. It's a free country. Who can stop us? Here's the question. Nobody can stop you airing your views in public. Is that true or false? Nobody can stop you airing your views in public. Is it true or false? And the time is... caught you changing your mind. The time's up, and the answer is false. Almost anyone can stop you simply by reacting violently to what you say and putting you in danger of committing an offence, conduct likely to cause a breach of the peace. Not only speaking, but wearing, doing, or carrying something all comes under conduct. And Norma put this to the test.
We chose an issue, the population problem, as our example, and we accused everybody of breeding like rabbits.
Does that offend you?
Must we breed like rabbits?
Will you take it as an insult?
No, people die, people must be born. There must be new people. No, I don't think so.
Does that offend you?
No.
In Hyde Park, people didn't care. I could have stood there all day. Nobody cared. Then I spoke to some mothers at a baby clinic.
I think there should be a law because I'd feel highly insulted.
What would you do if you had a large family of young kids and I came out with that?
I don't know, I'd probably clump you one. I'm very annoyed about it, I'd be, definitely.
I'm glad she didn't clump me, but she only has to feel like it, and I could be committing an offence. A policeman could stop me from airing my views in public for conduct likely to cause a breach of the peace.
Well, in Scotland, breach of the peace covers practically anything which is likely to provoke other people, and it really is quite widely used as a charge.
So we can't do what we like in public. But what about in private, our own homes? You can't get much more private than that. An Englishman's home is his castle, and that goes for the Scots, the Welsh and the Irish too. Or does it go for any of us? What right have you to protect your home from the outsider or the intruder? How far can you go before you come up against the law? This far? Question. You can put broken glass on your wall to keep out intruders. True or false? Question. If your dog bites the intruder, he can sue you. True or false? Question. You can set a booby trap for an intruder. True or false? Question. You can fix a tripwire that sets off an alarm. True or false? Question. You can use a dangerous implement to stop an intruder. True or false? Question. You can arrest an intruder in your garden after dark. True or false? Now for the answers to those questions. Jimmy Reid, you can put broken glass on your wall to keep out intruders. What did you say?
False.
The answer is true. You can put the glass up.
Well, the law's an ass, as everyone knows.
You can take reasonable steps to keep people out, and putting glass on your wall is reasonable. A hidden cable carrying a high-voltage electric current would not be.
Anna Raeburn, the intruder can sue you if your dog bites him. Is that true or false?
I had an awful feeling it was probably true.
Well, it's false.
I'm so relieved. I was worried about the criminals.
Michael.
Well, I'm pleased about that too, because it's reasonable, miss. If your dog bites somebody who is unlawfully there, then the intruder probably can't sue you. But it would be a bit unreasonable to train your dog to be really savage, so that if he went for the man's throat, well, then you would be in trouble with the law.
Elfie Hinds, you can set a booby trap. True or false?
It's false.
It's false, you're quite right.
Yep, hidden traps that could cause injury, even to people who shouldn't be there, are unreasonable, and vicious devices like the old man traps, they're totally illegal.
Norman St. John-Stevas, you can set a warning tripwire. You hesitated for one brief flirting second there.
No, I didn't. I didn't hesitate. I was just hesitating about... I couldn't see where that lever was. In fact, I'm rather short-sighted, rather myopic.
Is it true or false?
And I've forgotten what the question was again. You can, I believe, yes.
It's true. Quite right.
Yes, there's no problem here. It's quite reasonable to have a tripwire that simply gives an alarm.
Willie Hamilton, are you allowed to threaten with a dangerous implement?
I think you are, yes.
Well, it's true. Michael.
Yes, you can. It's reasonable force again, and you can use reasonable force to remove a trespasser. And if you're a small lady up against a large, athletic man, then the garden fork would be reasonable. But firing off air guns at kids pinching apples isn't reasonable.
And Clement Freud, can you arrest an intruder in your garden after dark?
Yes.
Yes, and not only Clement Freud, any private citizen can arrest somebody who has actually committed a serious offence. And obviously that's what's happened here. But if you do this, notify the police as quickly as you can and get rid of him, hand him over.
Well, here are the scores at present. The members of Parliament have 25 points, the rest 24. All you have to do is divide them by 3. You'll see the rest have got an average of 8, and the members of Parliament an average of 8.3. The poorest man may in his cottage bid defiance to all the forces of the crown. It may be frail, its roof may shake, the wind may blow through it, the storm may enter, the rain may enter, but the King of England cannot enter. All his force dares not cross the threshold of the ruined tenement. Well, that may have been true when William Pitt said it a couple of 100 years ago, but is it true today? What about the people who try to cross your threshold? Now, we're assuming that they are all genuine callers, not crooks or con men trying to trick you, and that they come on you suddenly without previous warning, and you have to make an instant decision.
Oh, good morning.
Morning.
I'm from the council. We're reassessing the rates in this area, so I'd like to come in and take a look around.
What, no? I'm just in the middle of cooking. It's not a very good time.
Well, I understand you've just had some central heating put in. This could affect the rates, you see. So I'm afraid I must come in and take a look round.
Question. You have to let the local authority official into your home. True or false? 5 seconds to answer. Time's up, and the answer is false. You don't have to let him in.
Well, I would have thought the council would have written and let me know. Look, I'm sorry. You'll have to make an appointment. I must dash. I've got a cake in the oven. I've got to take it out. I'm sorry.
So am I. Excuse me, madam. Do you have a license for your television set?
Well, who are you?
Well, I'm checking on unlicensed television sets.
Oh, we don't have a television.
Well, I appreciate that, madam, but you'll understand that a lot of people tell me that who do. Do you mind if I come in and check?
You have to let the television detector man into your home. True or false? 5 seconds to answer. Time's up, and the answer is false. You don't have to let him in.
No, I'm sorry. I've told you we haven't got a set, and that's all there is to it.
Oh, good morning, madam. I've come to
Morning.
check the electricity supply.
Oh, the man read the meter only a few days ago.
No, it's not to read the meters, to check the supply, madam. Can I come in?
Well, it's not really very convenient. We're in the middle of a meal. Could you call back later?
Well, I'm afraid that's not very convenient either. I've got several more appointments. It means I have to do a complete detour.
Pity you didn't give us some warning, you know.
You have to let the electricity man into your home. True or false? 5 seconds to answer. Time's up, and the answer is false. Electricity, gas or water, you don't have to let them in.
Look, if you make an appointment and ring me or something, I'll be sure to be in. I'm sorry.
Yes, sir. I see.
Oh, Mr. Jackson.
I'd like to come in and see the repairs we've had done to the loft.
Well, I'm sorry, it's not really convenient now. Look, I'm just on my way out.
Well, it really is my house. It's my loft, and I've had to pay for the repairs.
Well, of course, I appreciate that, but I really have a most important interview in town, and I
No,
ought
it's
to
awkward.
go.
I'm only up in town for the day. If I could just see the repairs, I want to know what I'm paying for, you see.
You have to let your landlord into your home. True or false? 5 seconds to answer. Time's up, and the answer is false. He should give you reasonable notice.
No, look, I'm terribly sorry, but it just isn't convenient. Could we talk
very
about it,
sorry,
look, while I
I'm
get
very
down into
sorry.
town?
Mrs. Brown?
Yes?
You have a son called Albert Brown, I believe. Is he in?
Yes, he's in, but why?
I'd like to come in and ask him a few questions.
What about?
Well, I'd really rather speak to your son, Mrs. Brown, if you don't mind.
You have to let the policeman into your home. True or false? 5 seconds to answer. Time's up, and the answer is false. Even the policeman can't come in.
Well, I'm afraid it's not convenient. We'll ring you at the station when we can see you.
However, most reasonable people don't want to be unnecessarily obstructive, and it's essential, if society is to work successfully, for police and public to cooperate. So, you invite him in.
You'd better come in, then.
Thank you, madam.
Well, what's it all about? He hasn't done anything wrong, has he?
I'd really rather speak to your son, madam.
Look, I'd rather wait until my husband gets home later. Do you think you could come back?
But you have invited me in.
Once invited in, you have to let him stay. True or false? 5 seconds to answer. Time's up, and the answer is false. You are entitled to change your mind and ask him to go, and he must go.
Couldn't I ring you later at the station?
Very good, madam.
And so must everybody else go. We chose the most usual callers, but you have the right to say no in the first instance to anybody who calls at your home without previous notice. They may come back later, but at least you've had time then to telephone a solicitor or to consult someone else should you need to.
Remember, we're assuming that no crime is actually being committed on the premises and you haven't got stolen goods or drugs tucked away in the bedroom and that you're not carrying on a business. Because if you are, the VAT men may be able to come in. But even they aren't too sure about that one themselves. But granted all this is true, then this probably is our greatest freedom, to shut our own front doors against the whole world. So, the knock on the door at 3 o'clock in the morning should hold no terrors for us. Just turn over and go back to sleep.
Our next questions deal with our rights concerning our neighbours. How much do we have the right to interfere with their lives or they with ours? The first question. You can stop a neighbour obstructing your view. True or false? Answer in 5 seconds. All right, time's up. And the answer is false. You have no right to object.
You've got no legal right to a view from your property. But if a newly erected building cuts down the light that comes through your windows, then that could be different. You can have a legal right to light, but not to a view, except perhaps in Scotland.
Our next question. You can stop a neighbour's dog continually using your garden as a lavatory. True or false? 5 seconds to answer. Time's up, and the answer is true. You can at least get the neighbour to stop him.
Well, the law is a bit tender to dogs, but if the nuisance is persistent, then you should get some compensation. And, of course, you could take reasonable measures in self-defence. But really, it's simpler to lean over the fence and have a quiet chat about it.
Your neighbour can insist you keep your fence in good repair. Is that true or false? Time's up, and the answer is false.
In most cases, you can let your fence fall to bits, and there's nothing at all that your neighbour can do about it. On a housing estate or a council estate, there may be a duty to build a fence and keep it in repair, but these are exceptions to the general rule.
Your neighbour has the right to come into your garden and repair his property. Now, is that true, or is that false? Your time's up, and the answer is true.
If it's the only way he can get at his property to repair it, yes, he does have the right.
The circumstances of the next question have probably, at a conservative estimate, occurred about 1 million times already today. If your children knock a ball into a neighbour's garden, he has to return it. True or false? 5 seconds to answer. Time's up, and the answer is false.
He has no duty to return it, but it's your property, so he can't keep it. But he can't use it. But if you ask for it back, he doesn't have to give it to you. And there you are. It's a classic legal dilemma.
Well, I think everybody should get a point for that because there's no clear answer in law. If there was ever a case of getting together and having a friendly word over the fence, I suppose this is the one. Now for our next question. You can stop a neighbour from watching you in your home. True or false? You can stop a neighbour from watching you in your home. All right, time's up. And the answer is false.
If they're on their own property, there's not a thing you can do about it except buy thicker curtains or put up some shutters.
What surprised you there, Anna Raeburn?
That you had to depend so very much on the wording of the law, that the classic word that kept on coming up, the word that was repeated over and over again, was reasonable. And I presume if you wanted to debate many of those questions, it would depend upon either your own knowledge of the law and how the case could be worded, or else how your solicitor was prepared to fight for you over it.
The MPs have got 46 and the rest have got 45, so that's an average of 15 each. Well, at home, I trust you're doing as well, if not better than that. And now we come to the authorities. Authority, whoever or whatever it may be, knows its rights. It's been known to take advantage of that fact that we don't know ours. Perhaps it doesn't happen to the majority of us, but it's crucial to know our rights when faced with the most serious dispute with authority, say the police. And we must remind you that for Northern Ireland, the answers may not be true at present.
If the police stopped you and wanted to search you, do you think you'd be compelled to let them, or could you refuse?
Or you can refuse, but they'll search you.
No, I don't think so. Well, they could imply that they were searching for drugs and therefore you would have to let them do whatever they wanted to do.
There's nothing much you can actually do to stop them. I believe they've only got the right to stop and search you after midnight, though.
If the police arrested you, do you think you'd have a legal right to contact a solicitor?
Well, I have as much right here as I've got anywhere else. Let's put it that way. I wouldn't need a solicitor. I'm quite capable of defending myself.
I believe so. Yeah, I hope so, in fact. According to the telly, you know, Z-cars and all that, it's true. Have I?
Assuming you are not a known offender, do you know your rights when you come up against the long arm of the law?
You're in a bit of a hurry, sir?
Yes, I am. I'm late.
I see. Well, would you mind giving me your name and address and telling me where you're off to in such a hurry?
Look, I'm late, very late. I haven't got time to stand around answering questions.
Well, we'll ask a question. This man can refuse to give his name and address to a policeman. Is that true or false? Time's up, and the answer is true. He's within his rights in refusing to answer the policeman's questions.
There is one important exception here. The driver of a motor vehicle must, by law, give his name and address if asked by a policeman. But our man here's on foot, so he's absolutely within his rights.
So you refuse to give me your name and address?
That's right. Now, if you'll excuse me, I really am in a hurry.
Just a minute, sir. I'd like to see what you've got in that case.
Well, that's my business.
So you refuse to open the case?
Yeah, I do.
He can refuse to open his case. Is that true or false? Time's up, and the answer is true. He may be uncooperative, but he's within his rights.
The police do have the right to search you or your property in the street if they reasonably suspect that you're carrying a firearm or dangerous drugs, and in most large towns they can search you on the spot at night if they reasonably suspect that you're carrying stolen goods. Reasonably suspect means, of course, that almost everybody could be stopped and searched, so don't push your luck too far.
You're not being very cooperative, sir. I think you'd better come along to the station with me. We can sort it out there.
As far as I'm concerned, there's nothing to sort out. Unless you're arresting me.
Oh, no need for that, sir. Just come along to the station, sir. It's just on the corner.
You must be joking.
Is he? He can refuse to go to the police station. True or false? 5 seconds to answer. Time's up, and the answer is true. He can refuse. The police have no power to detain for questioning. People helping the police with their inquiries are doing so voluntarily.
All right, sir, you leave me no choice. You're under arrest.
Big deal. What for?
Question. He must be told why he's been arrested. True or false? All right, the time's up, and the answer is true. If you are arrested, that's detained against your will, you must be told what you're supposed to have done.
The only time you don't have to be told is when you're caught red-handed and it's obvious, or if by resisting arrest or running away, you make it impossible for the policeman to tell you.
I'm arresting you for obstructing a police officer in the execution of his duty.
Oh, do me a favour. I haven't obstructed you. I've simply refused to answer your questions, that's all.
That's good enough.
Is it? He can be charged with obstruction for refusing to answer questions. True or false? Time's up, and the answer is false. The policeman has slipped up on this one.
Early one morning in Grimsby, Mr. Rice was stopped by 2 policemen who asked him what his full name was and where he was going. And Mr. Rice said, Rice, Convermore Road, and that's all he would say. So the policeman asked him to accompany them to the station, and he replied, if you want me, you'll have to arrest me. So they arrested him and charged him with obstructing the police. But when the case came to the Divisional Court, the Lord Chief Justice Parker, said there is no legal duty to be agreeable or especially nice when accosted by the police, and Mr. Rice was acquitted.
Right, now let's get along to the station, shall we? This way.
Just a moment. You've arrested me. You've got to caution me.
He must be cautioned when arrested. True or false? All right. Time's up, and the answer is false. I'm sorry about that, but the famous "I warn you that anything you say may be taken down in writing and used in evidence," so loved by writers of detective stories and by every television policeman, is not compulsory at all.
It comes from the judge's rules, which are not actually law, and they recommend that a caution be given, and in fact one usually is. But you have no right to be cautioned, even when you're charged.
So our friend has been arrested and taken down to the police station.
Now look, I want a solicitor.
No, not so fast. Well, we might as well take your fingerprints and check our records.
What do you want to take my prints for? That's got nothing to do with obstructing the police or whatever I'm supposed to have done. You've got no right to take my prints.
After arrest, you can refuse to have your fingerprints taken. True or false? Time's up. And the answer is true. The police do not have an automatic right to take your fingerprints even after arrest.
If you refuse, however, the police can apply to a magistrate for an order that your fingerprints be taken by force. So, in practice, it might be easier to consent. And by the way, the police are not entitled to take your photograph unless you've been charged.
Look, what about my solicitor? I want to phone him.
All in good time.
Oh, no. Now, I know my rights. I'm entitled to a phone call and I'm entitled to consult my solicitor immediately. Now, come on.
After arrest, you have a legal right to contact a solicitor. True or false? Time's up, and the answer is false. There is no legal right in England, but it's true for Scotland.
The judge's rules again. They advise, and remember, they're not strictly speaking law, they advise that a person in custody should be allowed to speak to his solicitor or his friends, provided that no hindrance to the process of investigation is caused by his doing so. So the police could refuse you a call or make you wait. In practice, you probably get your call, but you've no right to it in England. In Scotland, a person who's been arrested is entitled, by an Act of Parliament passed this year, to have a message sent to his solicitor immediately. So, there you are, that's one up for Scotland.
I couldn't wait to get to Mr. Hamilton, who was saying, I voted as a Scotsman here. Did you really?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Jimmy Reid, did you vote as a Scotsman too?
Yes, of course, I've got to say that.
Well, we're not suggesting that everyone should go around being as uncooperative as possible, and the average law-abiding citizen with nothing to hide might well agree to give his name and address, open a suitcase, even go to the police station if asked. But that's quite different from saying that the police, or anyone else for that matter, should have the legal right to stop you on the street, search you and forcibly drag you off and hold you in custody when they happen to feel like it. Right, now let's check the score. Our Members of Parliament team have now got 64, so that gives them an average of 21, and the rest are just under 20 with 59. So our MPs are at the moment in the lead. These questions concern our right to privacy.
Do you regard my stopping you as an invasion of your privacy?
To a certain extent, depends how much time I've got.
Well, it could be considered as such, but when I heard what it was about, I thought it was probably worthwhile.
So you must have very strong feelings about it?
Yes, I do. I think every individual has a right to live the life the way they want to live it.
I think so, yes. I look on privacy very strongly. I'm very much annoyed when people invade my privacy.
Yeah, let's observe our privacy.
It's for BBC. We're doing a programme about your rights.
Almost everyone we spoke to was concerned about privacy. Everyone thought they had a legal right to privacy. They were wrong. Any invasion of privacy is permitted unless there is a specific law against it. So in this area, you certainly need to know your rights. Let's see if you do. Norma has been checking up on our rights to privacy. Fingerprints are private.
If your fingerprints were taken for elimination purposes, for instance, if your house was burgled, how could you be sure that they were destroyed afterwards? Would you be allowed to watch or even do it yourself?
If your fingerprints are taken for elimination purposes, the police will allow you to destroy them afterwards. True or false? 5 seconds to answer. Time's up, and the answer is true. Norman John-Stevas.
Yes?
Yeah.
Why are you picking on me?
Well, because you're nearest to me and you've got false.
Why don't you pick on them? Well, I don't think that you could stop the police if they're determined to destroy something, and equally, if they're determined not to destroy them, I don't see what you can do.
Norma?
When you apply for any kind of credit, somebody will check to see whether you're a good risk, and this is usually done through a credit reference agency. They've almost certainly got information about you, because one of the biggest agencies, British Debt Services, told us they bought the entire electoral roll every year and microfilmed it as a basis for a file on everybody in the country. You may be curious to know exactly what they've got down about you, especially if you've been refused credit.
You have a right to see a copy of any file kept on you by a credit reference agency. True or false? 5 seconds to answer. Time's up, and the answer is false.
Ask Clement if
you
I
have,
got it wrong.
you have no right at the moment. I'm not going to ask Clement about it. I'm going to ask Jimmy Reid about it. This didn't surprise you? You got
Well,
the
it
right.
doesn't surprise me. I mean, I think it's disgraceful, to tell you the truth. I voted there according to what I thought the law was, but the law's wrong in this instance, and I think it's a serious intrusion into the rights of people. There should be a law that forbids the keeping of these records, and you should certainly be able to know what people have in the files against you.
Yes, you've got no right at this moment to check on records which people keep about you, but you will have when the Consumer Credit Act is in force. The great problem with the Consumer Credit Act is that only 2 of the 194 sections are yet in force after a year, so perhaps there's something for you, Jimmy Reid.
Right, Norma.
People make money out of what they know about you. They put you on a list. We were offered 1,000 names and addresses of lonely people for £50. This list was compiled from people who'd been on a singles holiday. And I was told that if I compiled a list of bald-headed men, that could be sold for £50 1,000. The cheapest rate I came across was your local town hall, selling the voters list at 12 names and addresses a penny. And the most expensive one was this one, 10p a name. Each name's guaranteed wealthy, having an income of more than £10,000 a year. Whoever you are, you're probably on some list, and most likely you don't know about it.
If you find your name is being sold on one of these lists for commercial purposes, you have a right to have it removed. Is that true or false? 5 seconds to answer. Well, time's up, and the answer is false. Clement Freud, you forced your lever through the front of that desk as though you meant to push it through the front of everyone's television screen. Why?
Because I know it's false and I'm against it.
He's probably tried to get his name off so many lists.
I also thought bald-headed men ought to come more expensive than £50 1,000.
I absolutely agree with you, and so does Elfie Hinds. Right. Norma.
Very often we're asked to give highly personal details about ourselves when we apply for jobs. And if we want the job enough, we'll reveal them. But look at these. Government service want every address for the last 5 years of any former wife or husband, even for a holiday job. British Council, fiancé's past employment. And police cadets, when did you last wet the bed? The information on these forms is confidential, and your employer mustn't reveal it. But if you get the job, he'll learn a lot more about you, and perhaps you'll want to apply for a different job requiring a reference. And then maybe you'll wonder what your employer will pass on.
The question is, you have a right to see what's written about you in a reference. Is that true or false? You have a right to see what's written about you in a reference. True or false? The time's up, and you're all right, because the answer is false. You have no right at all. You may be given a to whom it may concern type reference, but you have no control over what your employer writes about you as long as it's true. Have you ever had a reference, Alfie?
I've had several. And I think this is quite right, because if a person who gives a reference is going to be challenged, he'll be very hesitant to give this reference. And I think this would be against the requirements of society if you was forced to divulge the information you were being given in a reference.
Norma?
We have to trust some people with our personal secrets. The doctor, the bank manager, even the local chemist. They could all tell a few embarrassing tales about us if they wanted to, but they don't. But what if somebody else gets hold of intimate details about your past and spreads them around? What if your local paper printed them? If it cost you your job or your reputation, could you do anything about it?
And that's the question. You are entitled to compensation if someone makes true statements about you which could cause you financial loss or ruin your reputation. 5 seconds to answer, true or false. Not a hesitancy here. They've all voted, so the time's up, and the answer is false. However nasty, however unpleasant, if they're true, there's nothing you can do. But Willie Hamilton, they could drag up your past for an ever and ever, couldn't they?
Oh, they keep dragging it up.
I don't mean your personal past, I mean all our personal pasts.
I don't see any reason why they shouldn't.
It's your future, Willie, that's in
That-
doubt, not your past.
Both future and past.
And now, what some people regard as the greatest invasion of privacy. Norma, how old are you?
I'm not telling you that.
Now, to a lot of people, a lot of men as well as women, the question of age is deeply personal, terribly private, and why not? Can you be forced to reveal your date of birth? Our last question of privacy. You're driving a car, a policeman stops you, you haven't got your car licence, and he asks your age. Now, if you can't produce your driving licence, then you must reveal your age. Is that true or false? All right. Time's up. We've just had one late change over here. And we've had one late change for the better, I may say, because the answer is true. You are required by the Road Traffic Act to give your date of birth if you haven't got your licence. That's because the new licences have a code on them. And it's now possible for the policeman or for anybody else to work it out. I've got one here, and I know this chap was born in 1956. I know he was born in the month of March, and I know he was born on the 13th of March.
It wasn't you, Cliff.
No, it wasn't, that's for sure. Mine's the 11th of December, 1919, if you want to know, Jimmy. Anna Raeburn, do you get offended that people are able to tell your date of birth simply by turning up your driving licence?
No, I mean, it wouldn't happen with my driving licence because I don't drive, but it would, I don't understand the thing about age at all. I think it's a terrible affectation. I think it can be quite charming. And the sort of person who sort of uffle-fuffles and says, no, I really don't want to tell you that. You know, just let's say, as Baby Daniel's line, you say, I'm perpetually 32. But, I mean, I can't see the point of it, actually. And if somebody asked me, I'd tell them, I mean, what the heck?
But you're so young.
You're quite young, yes.
I knew that would happen.
I knew you knew.
I mean, that's...
There we are. Privacy. You balance the safeguard against theft with the invasion of privacy. All right. Now, the last question affects us all. We all spend money. Now, what about this? No money refunded. The question is, if you see a notice like this in a shop, you can ignore it. Is that true, or is it false? Time's up. and the answer is true. They are not valid. Michael.
Shopkeepers who put up notices like that are really hoping that we don't know our rights, or they're trying to bluff us as to what they are. But the truth is, if there's something wrong with what you buy, you can have some of your money back or perhaps all your money back. And you don't have to send the goods back to the manufacturer, and you don't have to take a dreaded credit note.
Norman St. John-Stevas, you were trying to say something in the middle there.
Yes, with the greatest respect to Michael, I don't think that is strictly accurate. I think that the notice does have the effect in that if there's nothing wrong with the article, you just can't get your money back again.
No, and if there's nothing wrong with the article, you quite probably don't want your money back.
Well, you might well do, because you might change your mind.
Oh, well, that's simply breaking the contract on your part, and we're assuming that the shop has broken it and not you.
Well, I think we shall have to go to the House of Lords to decide.
I'll see you there.
And so the final score. Well, the MPs have got 76, and the rest have got 77. So the rest have beaten, or us have beaten them by 1 point. The person with the highest score in the studio, I may say, is Norman St. John-Stevas with 30. A tiny flutter of applause goes around the studio. But how do you at home compare with that? Do you have 30 or more? The fact about all our rights is that it's up to us to find out what they are. If you have any doubt, you can't lose anything by asking. It needn't even cost you anything. There are all sorts of organisations, law centres, Citizens Advice Bureau, all over the country. It's up to us, I think, to use them. Good night.
I'm a teacher. A few weeks ago, we had a little lad from our school, second-year boy, 12 years of age, walking to school. One Wednesday morning, I arrived in my car and I heard sirens at the bottom of the hill.
Do you regard my stopping you as an invasion on your privacy?
No, I don't think so.
Does it ever worry you when you fill in a form that you're revealing too much about yourself? When I stopped you just now, did you regard it as an invasion of your privacy?
No.
Do you think everybody should please themselves what they do and walk around with things like that? Do you think you have a legal right to go in and gather and listen to them?
Yes,
Absolutely.